Lauren grabbed her coffee from the counter and started to leave the coffee shop. She was on automatic mode since her mind lingered on the events from the night before. Her father had called her to tell her that her mother was having a mental breakdown. Lauren drove to her folks' house and pleaded with her mother to get help. At the mere mention of the psychiatric hospital, her mother went ballistic. And when Lauren's father tried to intervene, her mother began hitting him as well. Lauren was forced to call the police, but by the time the police arrived, her mother's panic attack had subsided, and she finally agreed to see a doctor. Lauren shook her head. Just thinking about the events exhausted her. "Excuse me," a deep voice said, interrupting her. Lauren turned, and her train of thoughts came to a screeching halt. She immediately recognized the man. She had never met him, but she'd seen him a couple times at the small coffee shop. Up until today, she'd only seen him from afar. However, up close, he was even more handsome. "You dropped this," he said, holding out a scarf. Lauren looked at the cloth in his hand and blinked. She gave herself a mental shake. What was the matter with her? She was acting as if she never spoke to a man before. She went to take back her scarf when her fingers accidentally brushed against his. Almost immediately, she felt a streak of energy coursing through her body. Thanks," she said, trying to shake off the strange feeling. "By the way, I'm Austin," he said. He smiled at her. The corners of his eyes crinkled. "We should hang out sometime." His words were like a bucket of ice thrown on her head. His interest in her was obvious, but Lauren wasn't interested in dating. She had witnessed too many failed relationships in her family that she knew that she'd be insane to pursue anything. "Sorry, no," she said, shaking her head. She stepped back and quickly turned to leave. The warm feeling she felt earlier had evaporated, and in its place was trepidation and fear. This always happened. When men showed interest in her, her first impulse was to run away as far as she could. The alternative was too much to even think about. Lauren walked across the street, and a few minutes later she entered her office and got straight to work. She was concentrating on reading a document when her phone began to vibrate. It was her older sister, Miranda. She normally would have allowed the call to go to messaging, but something told her to pick up the phone. "Can I come stay with you for a few days?" Miranda asked, getting straight to the point. "I got into a fight with Johnny and I need a place to stay." "Okay," Lauren said. Her older sister fought constantly with her husband. Then after a few days had passed, she would return to him. Lauren pointed out to Miranda about this destructive cycle, but her sister usually ignored her. When work was finished for the day, Lauren returned home knowing that she wouldn't enjoy any peace and quiet until her sister left. She was subjected to complaints about Miranda's husband and to gossip that she didn't want to hear. "So Jenny's having an affair," Miranda said. She retrieved the bag of chips from Lauren's pantry and began to dig in. "It looks like Little Miss Perfect isn't so perfect after all." Lauren let out a long breath. "I wish you didn't tell me this," she said. "I really don't need to know our oldest sister's business." "Well, she keeps criticizing my marriage," Miranda said in a huff. "Hers isn't so hot if she's sneaking around her husband's back." "Right," Lauren said, her tone flat. From experience, she knew not to get involved in their rivalry. Just then her phone rang. "I've got to take this call," she said. Lauren was glad for the interruption and welcomed her best friend's cheerful voice. Holly had asked her to be her maid of honor, and in a few weeks' time, her best friend would be married to her longtime love. Her friend rattled off the last-minute things that needed to be done, but then she stopped. "I'm so sorry. I forgot to ask how you're doing," she said, laughing. Lauren didn't bother telling Holly about her sisters since their marriage troubles were constantly evolving. But the stranger she met at the coffee shop was still on her mind, and she recounted the surprising interaction. "You told him that you'd hang out with him, right?" Holly asked. "No," His suggestion left me cold, and I walked away. My life is really great right now. I don't need a man to come into my life and mess it up. Oh, Lauren, Holly sighed. You're just afraid to love and be loved. Lauren was about to argue with her friend, but she fell silent. Maybe she was right. Over the past year, she'd helped Holly plan her wedding, and during that time, she'd witnessed how well she and her fiancé got along. They didn't engage in drama and seemed to be genuinely in love. She considered that their relationship might have been an anomaly, but Lauren had also witnessed the same loving relationship in both sets of parents. Lauren's family, meanwhile, was just messed up. But then she thought perhaps her family's relationship weren't good examples to consider. She saw now that her perceptions were warped by their troubles. If she looked outside her family, she saw many positive models of functional and loving relationships. And if these relationships were true, then she wondered if she might have a chance. The next morning, Lauren went to get her coffee as usual. Normally she went to the office after she got her order. Today, though, she decided to take a seat and see if Austin would come through the doors. After 10 minutes, she saw no sign of him, and she fought back her disappointment. The attraction she felt for Austin was real, and she blew any chance she had with him. A couple of weeks passed, and Lauren resigned herself to the fact that she had to move on. Her friend's wedding had arrived, and she threw herself in her maid of honor duties. The ceremony went smoothly, and as she sat on one of the chairs to rest, a familiar figure caught her eye. It was the man from the coffee shop. She flagged Holly over. "That's him," she said, trying hard to keep the excitement from her voice. Holly followed her gaze. "Why, that's Austin," she said in surprise. "You know him?" Lauren asked. Holly told her that Austin was her fiancé's stepbrother and that he was in town for the wedding. "You should go talk to him," she said. "As far as I know, he's single." Lauren felt her heart race as the old fear rushed to the surface. But then she took a deep breath. She was attracted to Austin, and she knew he was interested in her as well. She needed to discover whether it was possible for her to have a satisfying relationship like her friend. And the only way to achieve this was to give him and love a chance. She approached Austin and tapped him on the shoulder. He turned and his eyes widened with recognition. "Hi, I'm Lauren," she said, smiling at him. "We should hang out sometime." Austin returned her smile. "How about now?" he asked. What did you guys think of the story? Please comment in the comment section below. I can't wait to read your answers and discussions. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to get the latest stories to warm your heart. Until next time, bye!